Emal's mother grasped our arms, and the three of us stepped out of the ranks to hear what the girl had to say. As we did this, our hostess hesitated, and as she stepped out of the ranks, the whole company stopped. Emal's mother spoke to the governor, saying she would like to have the rest go on and get seating arrangements completed, and that by that time we surely would be there. Meanwhile, she was holding the girl's hand in hers. As the company moved on, she knelt down and, putting her arms around the little girl, said, "Dear one, what can I do for you?" She found that the child's brother had fallen that afternoon, and they thought his back was broken. The child begged the lady to go with her to see if she could not help him, as he was in great pain. Emal's mother arose, explained the situation to us, and told us to go on, that she would go with the child, then come in later. The leader said that if it was permissible, he would like to go along. Emal's mother invited us all to go, so we turned aside and followed her and the girl as they walked hand in hand, the girl fairly leaping with joy. Our hostess told us that the girl was certain her brother would be healed by the great lady. As we neared the house, the girl bounded ahead to tell her family we were coming. When we came up to the door, we saw that the house was but a mud hut of the lowest order. Emal's mother must have interpreted our thoughts, for she said, "Although it is a hovel, warm hearts beat within." At that moment the door was thrown open, a gruff masculine voice spoke, and we stepped inside. If the hut looked wretched from without, it was doubly so from within. It was scarcely large enough for us to crowd into, and the ceiling was so low that we could not stand erect. A dim witch light burned, and cast a weird light upon the hard faces of the mother and the father, as they sat amidst their squalor. In the far corner, on a mass of musty straw and of vile-smelling rags, lay a lad not more than 5 years old, his face drawn and ashen pale. The girl knelt beside him, holding his face in both her hands, one pressed against each cheek. She was telling him that he was going to be perfectly well again, as the beautiful lady was already there. She removed her hands, moved aside to give him a clearer view, and for the first time she saw the rest of the party. Instantly her expression changed, and a great fear seemed to pervade her whole form. She dropped her face in her folded arms, and her form shook with a convulsion sob as she cried out, "Oh, I thought you were coming alone." Emal's mother dropped on her knees beside her, put both arms around her, and held her close for a moment. She became silent, and Emal's mother said she would send us away if the girl wished to have us go. The girl said she was only surprised and frightened, that we need not mind her, as she was only thinking of her brother. Then Emal's mother said, "You love your brother dearly, do you not?" The girl, who could not have been more than 9 years old, said, "Yes, but I love everyone." The conversation was interpreted to us by Emal, as none of our party spoke the language. Emal's mother said, "If you love your brother so much, you can help to heal him," and she told the girl to take the position she had been in, and to place her hands on each side of his face. Then Emal's mother moved so that she could place her hand on his forehead. Almost instantly the moans ceased, the boy's face lighted up, his little form relaxed, a perfect calm settled over the whole scene, and the child slept quietly and naturally. Emal's mother and the girl sat as they were for a few moments. Then, with her left hand, the lady gently removed the girl's hands from the boy's face, saying, "How beautifully he is, how strong and fine." Then Emal's mother removed her hand ever so gently, and as I happened to be standing next to her, when she extended her left hand, I reached out my hand in order to assist her to her feet. As her hand touched mine, such a thrill went through my whole body that it left me perfectly helpless. She sprang lightly to her feet and said, "For a moment I forgot myself. I should not have taken your hand as I did, for momentarily I seemed to be overwhelmed, so great was the power that was flowing through me. I recovered my composure almost instantly. The others did not notice, as they were all deeply engrossed in what was going on around them. The girl had suddenly thrown herself at Emal's mother's feet, and clasping each in one of her hands, was frantically kissing the coverings. Emal's mother reached down and with one hand turned the fervent, tear-stained face upward. then knelt and clasped the child to her and kissed her eyes and lips. The child put both arms around the mother's neck, and both were motionless for a moment. Then that strange light began to pervade the room, and it grew brighter and brighter until every object seemed to be sufficed with the light, and nothing cast a shadow. The room seemed to be expanding. The father and the mother of the two children had sat on the dirt floor in stony-faced silence thus far. They arose, and the expression on their faces changed to blank dismay, then to fright, and the man bolted through the door, nearly upsetting the leader of the expedition in his haste to get away. The mother of the household threw herself prostrate at the side of Emal's mother, and sobs shook her frame. Emal's mother placed her hand on the woman's forehead, speaking in a low voice to her. Presently the sobs ceased. She drew herself to a half-sitting, half-kneeling position, and saw the transformation that had taken place in the room. The expression on her face changed to one of terror. She rose hastily to her feet and started to run from the room. Emal reached out his hand and took one of her hands, while the beautiful lady took the other. They held her hands thus for a moment, and the frightened expression changed to a smile. We looked around, and in place of the hovel we had entered, we were in a moderately comfortable furnished room with seats, table, and a clean bed. Emal walked over, picked up the boy, still sound asleep from the heap of musty straws and rags, placed him tenderly on the clean bed, and drew the covers over him. As he did so, he stooped and kissed the child's forehead as tenderly as any woman could have done. Emal's mother and the girl arose and walked to where the mother of the household stood. We all gathered around them. The mother sank to her knees, and grasping the feet of Emal's mother, began kissing them and entreating her not to leave. Emal stepped forward and, stooping down, took the woman's hands and drew her to her feet, all the time speaking quietly to her in her own language. As she stood erect, the old soiled garments she had been wearing were changed to new ones. She stood in mystified silence for a moment, then threw herself into the outstretched arms of Emal's mother. They stood in this attitude for a moment, when Emal reached out and, placing his hands upon their arms, separated them. Then the girl rushed forward with an outstretched hands, crying, "See, see, my things are new." She turned to Emal's mother, who stooped and picked her up. The child put her arms around her neck with her face close to her shoulder. The leader of the expedition was standing just back of Emal's mother, and the child reached out her hands over the mother's shoulder toward him, lifting her face, and gave him a happy smile. The leader stepped forward and held out his hands. The child clasped them, saying that she loved us all, but not so much as she did this dear lady, meaning Emal's mother. Emal said he would go and find the father. He returned in a few moments, bringing the frightened and half-sullen father back with him. Soon we could see that underneath the sulliness there was a deep appreciation. We prepared to leave, and as we left, the mother of the household asked if we would not come again, and was told that we would see her again the next day. We hurried away to the governor's house, fearful lest we had kept the party waiting. Although the time had seemed hours, we could not have been away more than 30 minutes. I am certain it all happened in much less time than it has taken me to write about it. We arrived at the house just as the rest of the party were taking their seats at the table. The leader of the expedition asked if he might sit by our chief, and it was so arranged. It was easily seen that he was very much agitated, and the chief said afterwards that the man was so moved by what he had seen that he could scarcely keep quiet. The seating arrangements were the governor at the head of the table, at his right Emal's mother, then Emal, the beautiful lady, our chief, and the leader of the expedition. On the governor's left sat our hostess, then Emal's son and his sister. I mention these arrangements because of what happened later.